Well, let's begin. Welcome to the How to Draw Ponies panel with MLP Drawing School. We are joined today by special guest Andy Price. Where?
We don't know how we got this.
Yeah, I learned this about an hour ago, so yeah.
Thank you, BronyCon. Yes. Karma, I get it.
All right, we're going to start with introductions. I am View Rustifer. People just call me View. I have been drawing ponies since season 1, and they have been wonderful. And now they are a source of income, which is great.
My name is Wandering Dragon. I've been watching ponies since season 2 and drawing since season 3.
My name is Barrett Engel. I'm also sometimes known as Skybrush online. I've been a commercial illustrator since 1987 and been drawing ponies since 2011. I love them. Hi!
And my name is Andy Price. I have been working with the ponies now. I just celebrated my 4th anniversary. I started working with the ponies, IDW Publishing, thank you. In 2012, with myself and Katie Cook, helped launch the officially licensed comic book from IDW Publishing, and we're still going strong, and I'm still working on the book, and I'm still drawing ponies, and like that. I've been a professional artist since 1990, and I draw whatever pays the bills. All right, well, I got a tough act to follow, but I'm Bob Dean Zero. Thank you so much. I draw a lot of Sweetie Belle. That tends to be what people know me for, I guess. So I've been drawing for something like 3.5 years now. Just now starting to get on really on point. Started bending just this past year, which is exciting for me, I suppose. And I guess that's really all you need to know about me. Let's get into it.
All right, we are going to start with the basics of how to draw a pony, and one of the most important basics is never forget your reference. And guess what I did? I forgot my references, which is sad. Rule number one is pull up a reference always. You want to know not just for what colors the character is, but what makes that character unique, things like the bow and Apple Bloom's hair, the little roundness of the bulbs, and just to get a good idea of proportions and anatomy and whatnot. If you draw a pony a million times, you will eventually learn without reference, but the reference gives you the blueprint for that.
Have you tried drawing a shoe right now? But you probably couldn't do it. And I mean that.
Even
So,
more
I don't know about you,
there.
I don't stare at people's shoes that often. So you can probably do like a basic shape of it, but you really need something to look at to really tell you where that detail is, like how that...
What is that? What is that?
It's a shoe without a reference.
Another quick challenge is just trying to draw a bicycle from memory.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had to draw in an assignment, I had to do a shopping cart. You'd think, I've seen a shopping cart, you can picture it in your mind. Couldn't do it. I had to go to a Kroger and take photos of the shopping carts of the parking lot.
Yes.
And of course, the question comes up, what type of shoe you're going to draw? You know, I would draw tennis shoes.
Well, welcome to How to Draw Shoes.
Draw a horseshoe.
Could we do let's get fashionable. Let's do some kitten pumps and some ankle straps there.
Some products.
We've got a shoe in front.
Oh, there we go. Reference.
Yep. All right. See, I wouldn't have known that Nike logo was on the side of it. I should. I didn't.
You should. But okay, this is How to Draw Ponies. So we are going to start with, of course, ponies. And everybody has a different way that they put together a pony from the initial sketch, but you always want to start with an initial sketch. You want to have the basics of what makes the pony, the little lines to represent bones and whatnot.
Yeah, they call the stage the undersketch stage, where you're doing all the steps that come before your actual sketch, which sounds a little bit redundant.
This
but
looks
it's very
awful.
important.
I mean, it's supposed to, because it is awful right now, because it's not the final product. You do an undersketch to...
Basically, what you're doing is you're trying to get things like how many heads is on top of legs, how long is the neck, just things like that, you know. You're not erasing stuff all the time. Oh, I made Sweetie Belle too long.
I know that problem. All right, you guys notice he's basically just drawing circles right now, right? Okay. one of the things I get asked, that we all get asked a lot of times is, well, how do you do it? All of it is shapes. It doesn't matter if you're drawing Applejack or a Lamborghini. It's just basic shapes. The ponies, one of the reasons why ponies are so enjoyable to draw is they're very organic. Everything is flowing. They rarely have an angle to them, so it's all circles. And their body is kind of a little kidney bean. So with anything that you draw, you're going to start with a basic shape, like with a car. You would start with a box, like a rectangle with a little box on top, and that's the actual cab of the car. And the details and the shapes, the details of honing the shapes come in later. You always want to do a little brief, like they said, an undersketch first.
And it always helps to just have something down on the paper. It just kind of helps you, or canvas, whatever. But it always just kind of helps your mind kind of flow a little bit, kind of start getting ideas out and try to think about where you want things to be and how you're going to do different things. It's just, a blank canvas is just so much more intimidating than a canvas that has even the most just messy of lines, because you got at least have something.
It gives you somewhere to start, and it gives you the idea that it isn't going to be perfect from the beginning. I mean, you're going to make mistakes, even on paper, on regular traditional media. You do a sketch underneath, you do something awful, and you start with that blueprint, and it gives you somewhere to go. It's something to base things on. A big problem a lot of artists have is they'll start with the head, and they'll fully render the head, and then they'll move on to the neck, and they'll fully render the neck, and you go part to part to part like that. And this tends to end with your proportions going out of whack because you're not paying attention to the image as a whole. And this undersketch gives you a whole from the beginning to work from to correct your proportions a little bit. So you don't have to redraw the entire head when you realize, oh, this head is the size of a nickel and everything else is the size of a dollar.
That's another big point that he's touching on, is that this first sketch is meant to be messy because you're not going to be able to draw perfect from like Andy Price, but you most likely can't draw perfect your first line. So having this mess lets you get into drawing it, and it lets you erase and clean it up as you go along, because you also don't want to feel like you're wasting time if you create the fully rendered head, then move on to the neck and realize you have to fix a cheekbone.
Or if you're trying to draw like several ponies together in a group, like you want to draw all the main six walking towards you, you start drawing, and if you don't do those under drawings, you suddenly realize that it flies off the paper. You haven't set things up correctly.
So these are all great points for art in general, how you can figure out how to draw whatever you want to draw. But let's talk about what this means for ponies specifically. So what are all these little circles, all these little basic shapes? What does each one mean? Why are we doing them for a pony? And why is each one each size? And it's all a proportion thing.
Yes. So a lot of people start with the show style as a kind of basis for jumping off of. They use the show as reference with screenshots, with whatever have you. The show just playing in the background. So in show style, you have a small chest circle, a large arm circle, and a large head circle. And from there, you can just get the legs. And for the front leg, you can do kind of a straight line, kind of a curvy line, it doesn't matter. In show style, in horse anatomy, the shoulder goes up here, comes down a little bit, and then you have the beginning of the leg comes down, joint, 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 hoof. And so there's a lot there to play with bone-wise. Things can compress. And you have the knee, and an interesting thing about the show is you have that very sharp back turn in the back leg. So the knee becomes very sharp. It's very high and up. In a regular horse, it's much lower, but these are little ponies. They have some differences.
One other thing I will say about using show reference that you need to be careful about is that they're doing animation, and they will do sometimes things like squash and stretch to get the movement to look a certain way. And my wife's an animator, and there's been a couple occasions when I pulled up a piece of show reference and she thought, don't use that. Why? Look at the measurements, they're stretching the neck to get a certain effect. So it's good to have multiple examples of using show reference, like the MLP Wiki or something like that, and look at different examples. So, the Applejack neck that's 4 inches long.
Okay, so
I was going to say, one of the things that he mentioned is kind of a important term in art, that's squash and stretch. It is an animation term. And the idea is like, if you were to see a rubber ball bounce in slow motion, as it hits the ground, it compresses. That's squash. And as it takes off again, it stretches out from its position. That's stretch and squash. With animation, even the ponies, squash and stretch is always exaggerated to get the point across. So like what he was saying is, if he pulls up a picture of Applejack and she's kind of geek-necked, kind of chicken-necked, it's to get an emotion across or to get her movement across. And occasionally you'll freeze frame on a cartoon, and the old Looney Tunes are great for doing this. Freeze frame on a cartoon, and suddenly their head is this big, and you're like, but it wasn't a second ago. Sometimes those moments are for one frame, and it's just to trick your eye into that motion. But it's something, when you're doing cartooning, like ponies or anything like that, it's something important to utilize in your artwork. It helps keep movement, it helps keep flow, it helps keep it to look organic. But yeah, for the sake of reference, if you're just trying to draw a portrait of Celestia or a portrait of Twilight or whatever, just get a generic frame shot to work from.
So once you've got all this, this rough stuff going on, you've got a basic idea of what you're going to be drawing. How do you move on from that? How are you going to refine this, make it something that's obviously a pony, something you can be proud of as an art piece, right? There are a few ways you can go about it. Digitally, of course. One of them is to do line work and then do like flat coloring kind of thing. One of them is to paint it. In traditional art, like I'm sure if you're a beginner around here, you'd be using pencil and paper like we are. One of the ways is just clean up that sketch with an eraser and like put down some harder lines with a harder lead pencil, such and such, so that you can clean things up and try to make things look a little bit more recognizable. But what's really important is this rough stuff underneath it, so that you can get as many ideas down as you can. Try
and the rough stuff is really for correction too. If you mess up a line and you put it in the wrong spot, it doesn't matter. It doesn't ruin the whole thing. You can just put it in the right spot after that. Well, where is the right spot? Well, that's what references are for.
And the more you do this, the more you'll get a better eye for going, okay, I know automatically I'll make a line there, I'll make a line here and here, and you'll get a streamline it eventually with time.
And I think one of the other things that's really important to mention in these panels is volumes. I think volume is probably the biggest difference between beginner art and intermediate art. If you can make something that's on a 2D medium look like it's 3D, then you're on the right path. That's for sure. And so a piece with some volume will always look better than a piece that's flat. Well, okay, maybe not always, but most of the time, look like a piece is better than a piece that's flat. And what exactly is volume? I suppose is a question you could ask. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's giving everything a depth. It's like one of my favorite little phrases is that you shouldn't draw a circle, you should draw a sphere, or you shouldn't draw a square, you should draw a cube. That kind of thing. Because when you're on a 2D medium, if you're just drawing a circle, it's just a circle. It's 2D. How to make it appear like it's 3D is an important thing that makes some art just pop.
Yes, and a lot of that is overlap. A lot of that is how you put the eyes on the face. If you put the eyes on the face flat on the face, they're going to feel flat on the face. But if you round them out a bit, they're going to feel like they're more on a sphere. And again, the sketching underneath helps with this. If you at first put the flat on, you're like, oh, that's a little flat. Let's round that out.
And volume, I think, is really the thing that makes art hard. Because you have to train your brain to think spatially. You have to train yourself to think that like everything has depth, everything, even that little piece of wind here, that's something. It can't be intersecting other things.
Yes.
And thinking spatially like that isn't something that comes naturally to most people. It's what really makes it something that you have to practice. It's why you can't just do this, sit down and just belt it out.
And then the big part is also then how does the volume, how does this object you made interact with other objects in the piece? Like, For example, if you draw a sphere, don't forget that behind the sphere, it's probably going to be dark now because it's in the way of light.
Or, you know, you're going to have an object in front and an object behind. How are they going to be interfacing with each other? Once again, like he's walking side by side. Was working on a piece at one point, going along, everything was great, and I started counting legs. And I was missing legs. Fortunately, I could back up. But I counted legs before I started coloring.
So yes, anatomy.
I think another question, or what sometimes people ask is, how do I improve? How do I, learn? If you look at some artists and similarities, do you evolve it? And how can I do something they can do? And it just goes back to repetition, looking at what they do, and in effect trying to mimic it, right?
In part, studies are very important, but they're their own thing. I mean, you move on from show reference once you understand the basics of anatomy. I mean, you can use other references other than show for the basics of anatomy, but it helps to have something consistent to begin with, just so you don't have questions of, okay, why does this artist do the knee here and this artist does the knee here? That's something that you can discover on your own later. When you find something you like, when you find an art you like, you can use it as a study. Basically what you do is, well, at first you copy it, but you don't call that your work. That's not your work. You copy it and you say, okay, what did I learn from that? Okay, I learned a little bit about squashing and stretching, so I'm going to stretch a little bit here in my next piece on my own and see what that does and see how that improves it. And you take little bits from this artist, little bits from that artist, little bits from this book, little bits from that reference, and you compile your own way of drawing. It's stealing a little bit from everyone. Bad artists copy, good artists steal. So.
Plagiarize, nice term.
Well,
sometimes you
a
don't
nice
know.
term for the lawyers.
Well, it's true. I mean, you are influenced by everything that you see. I mean, people ask all the time, what my influences are, and you guys would be blown away if I was to show you the artists that influenced my work. Ponies, of all things. One of my favorite artists is a horror artist named Bernie Wrightson, who created Swamp Thing. When I first did the Ponies, I got out his books for reference because I wanted a particular look in my Niki from Bernie Wrightson. Everything influences everything. If you're looking at pieces in a museum, you're looking at Rockwell or you're looking at Leyendecker or something like that, you'll catch something, a wrinkle, something that you will then file away later. It'll show up in your artwork. You might not even realize it. But
yeah, oftentimes your stealing will be unconscious, but conscious and unconscious.
And as far as something else that I tell a lot of people that are having difficulty with a picture is don't be afraid to trace something. If you're trying to draw, let's say, a picture in a magazine, and it just doesn't look right, trace it. Don't then go, look what I drew. This is my art. No, you trace it. Use it as a learning technique.
Yeah, you learn how lines are formed, how they come together, how they curve, and it helps you understand a little better. But it's not a final product. It is a part of a study.
It's part of the whole growth process. I mean, most of us here have done literally thousands and thousands and thousands of drawings, and I had an instructor. My instructor wasn't the only one who used this line, but he told me when I was in art school, every artist has 10,000 bad pictures in them, and a limited number of good ones. What you have to do is you have to work all the bad ones out of your system, so all you have left is the good ones. What it comes down to is draw, and figure it out.
One of the most important things about drawing is persistence, is that idea, okay, I'm going to draw 15 minutes a day. That's what I tell people. Draw 15 minutes a day. If you feel like drawing more after that, great. If you don't, put the pencil away. But as long as you get those 15 minutes out, you'll keep drawing sometimes, and you'll keep drawing for hours and hours, and it'll keep fresh in your brain, and you'll learn.
And to attach onto that, as you continue to draw, you might say to yourself, oh, it's not that good, and you'll compare yourself to people who may have been drawing longer, who may be spending more time drawing, that isn't always the best way to compare to your old self. See how you have developed after a year of drawing versus how you've developed versus against other people who have developed. Compare yourself to yourself before you compare to others.
On that note, I'm going to give all of you guys a little bit of homework.
You thought you were on vacation?
Yeah.
All of you guys that actually are serious about drawing, this is what I want you to do. Take just a piece of paper and draw two faces. Draw a male face, draw a female face. Don't have to do any figures, just draw the faces. Date it. Give it to mom, give it to dad, give it to wife, give it to husband, give it to brother, sister, whatever.
This is wonderful.
Hold on to this for 1 year. A year later, take out a piece of paper, draw a male face, draw a female face.
1 year later, if we're doing this panel again, we're asking for those faces.
Yeah. Okay, let me have that picture again.
Or else you're all going to be pounding out erasers on recess.
Right.
We would like to come back, so don't tell BronyCon that we're doing this.
But you'll see the difference that the year can make in your work. This was something that we did in school. First day of a particular instructor's class, Mr. Jose Delbo, okay, you take out your paper, take out your pen. And he had us draw faces. And he took them up and he says, you can't have these. And he said, you'll get them back at the end of the year. It was like being in gym class and the teacher takes away your Hot Wheels and you'll get it back at the end of the year.
Yeah.
We felt like, okay, what did we do? And we completely forgot about it. Never brought it up again. And then the last day of school, he's like, okay, take out your pen, take out your paper, draw these faces. And he handed out these pictures back to everybody. And we're like, oh my God. And we were like horrified. Like, I drew that.
Did the eyes really go there?
And that's one of the things about being an artist is that you will, years down the road, you will discover these landmines that you left behind. So you'll go back and oh, wow, I did that. I was proud of that one. And it's going to happen. You're going to draw something and you're going to say, this is the best piece of work I've ever done.
Yep.
And then 3 years from now, you're going to look at it and go, okay, can I pay you to give me that back?
Yeah.
I have friends, they have blackmail material going back to the 1980s. It's horrifying. They can make me do all kinds of stuff just so they don't show it on DeviantArt. And they go, Barrett did this in 1987. Oh!
And it's like that. I mean, you will always improve, and as long as you keep working. And often it won't feel like that. Art is very psychological, very, very psychological, and it's kind of weird how that works. But persistence is one of the best traits. References, studying other artists, and finding a play to the study, being like, I really like that, I'm going to steal it. And then you take it and you use it, you meld it, and you play with it. And finding positive ways to do things that other people find to be assignments. Like, oh man, I have to draw a shoe. It's like, no, I'm going to draw this shoe, and it's going to be the best shoe I've ever drawn. Oh my God, that's horrible. That's how it goes.
Why didn't I use a reference? Yeah.
Always.
And that's what actually beauty is about art, is that it's not like engineering where, you know, there's not going to be a TV news crew behind saying, today Baron Engel produced a terrible piece of artwork. Hundreds of people were killed in this. Like, no one's going to die from this. And sometimes you're going to feel like, no, I'm going to contact me. Well, see, we got to start over again. But it's art. Don't get overstressed about it. It's not brain surgery. It's not, rocket science, literally. It's art. And you'll go, okay, try again. You pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, you say, okay, I learned something there, I'm gonna try that trick again. And I've tried all kinds of tricks, and I've dusted myself off a lot.
Don't set your head ahead of your hand. Don't let yourself picture things that you can't draw and then get frustrated when you can't draw them, because you shouldn't expect yourself to be able to do professional work when you're just an intermediate. It's not something that you can realistically expect of yourself. People get frustrated when they can't reach their own expectations.
Yeah. One thing I will do sometimes for a project, if I've got a vision for a piece that I want to do, is say, okay, I'll make a list, I'll write out everything that's going to be in the picture. And I'll say, okay, have I ever done that before? No, I've never drawn that before. Okay, fine. Have I drawn it? Well, I've drawn that lots of times. Cool. This kind of lighting effect, I can handle that. And then I'll go through and say, well, before I start on my Sistine Chapel, I'm going to maybe do some little smaller study pieces where I'll try out different little things. And then when I've got an idea what I'm doing, then I'll go on to the masterpiece.
How many of you guys here are actually interested in doing illustration as like a job? Okay. How many of you guys here draw ponies? How many of you guys that are interested in doing illustration as a job draw something other than ponies? Okay, good. For all you guys that raised your hand, I want to do illustration as a job, did not raise your hand when I asked if you do something other than ponies. You have to be able to draw everything.
Everything.
If you are serious about doing illustration as a job, I'm going to tell you this right now. You're not going to be drawing what you want to draw. A client is not necessarily going to pay you for something that you wanted to draw. Like for me, I work with an editor. And if my editor says, we need an illustration with MacGyver driving a pickup truck through a stand of watermelons. I'd love to see that illustration.
That's awesome.
All right.
How much will that cost?
Can you draw that for me? Well, I don't know how to draw a pickup. Then you're not the guy for the job.
Nope.
Yep.
Now,
You have to be able to draw cars. You have to be able to draw people. You have to be able to draw backgrounds. That is a big thing. I see a lot of people come up to me, will you look at my art? There'll be a lot of figures, but no backgrounds.
Yeah.
You need to learn to draw the spaces around you. So like I said earlier, you got to draw everything you see.
It's fun too, I think, to just challenge yourself to draw something new every day.
And to add on to that, it is also good to, when you're practicing other things, to practice many versions of other things. Because when you're working for a client, or you might be working at a studio, you know, you might have to draw 40 barrels so that they'll pick 3 that they like. And it has to be something that you enjoy doing.
and the other thing too is you've got this balance you have to strike between, you have to be passionate about your work. If you don't love doing this, it's going to show. But at the same time, you can't be married to a concept, because the client may come back and say, no, I don't like ants. Okay, fine, well, what do we need to do? But if you've fallen in love with idea number 6, and you can't say, okay, I've got to leave idea number 6 behind and move on to idea number 8 or 10 or 12, you know, you're going to have a problem with that. I've been beating my head against the wall project out of Australia, and it was only last week after doing like 40 thumbnails, we're trying to figure out how to put all these compositional elements in this picture, and I realized I had created this mental box for myself because the guy said there has to be certain things in the picture, and I didn't realize maybe not all of certain things have to be in the picture, just things that represent that this thing, the whole concept of an object or vehicle is in the picture, and I went, well, if I do it from this angle, then I can approach it this way, and then I stopped thinking of it like that, started thinking like a scene from a movie. So I started to draw all these different possibilities of where you could be in a shot in a film, and I sent those off to the client, and came back and I went number 2. Yay!
So what else do these guys need to know about drawing a pony specifically? What else is there to say?
Well, I think it would be important to open it up to questions at some point. So if people would start to line up on the middle of that aisle there, we can have somebody set up for questions in a minute.
Oh.
I know, yeah, he has this is our mic, he has a mic. Oh, we have 2 mics. Do we have? So it's his, I guess it's just the screen.
Please try to keep your questions to,
Drawing and drawing-related activities. If you want to ask Andy Price what's his favorite kind of food, please sit down.
or his favorite book, please sit down.
Or our favorite episode. Yeah, no best one.
No best voting.
No best one.
We're not here to start a war.
Everybody knows the answer to Sweetie Bone.
Sure.
Shots fired! Shots fired! Settled.
No best pony from the panel, please.
All right. How many of you guys read the comment panel this morning when I established? Okay. So I'm going to say this again. This is my rating for the ponies. This is just me. Applejack in capital letters. Then, on the same line, Rarity, Fluttershy, Twilight, Pinkie Pie. Spacebar, spacebar, spacebar. Rainbow Dash.
That hurts. That hurts. So our first question from someone dressed as Rainbow Dash. Thank you, Andy.
I'm sorry.
Do you have any on how to draw wings?
Yeah,
Wings?
Let's go.
You loves wings.
I love wings. I would rather be drawing them than talking about them. So let's have Andy or somebody talking about the wings while I draw what they're talking about.
Well, for me, I do not do the wings really as they are done on the show. I like to do the wings a little bit more realistic, not quite so fluffy as they are on the show. That was the one thing about the design that always kind of drove me nuts. I was like, those are not going to lift anything off the ground. Bumblebees. So, but again, we're going to go back to the idea of reference. Pick out a couple of nice pictures of birds that you like. And it doesn't matter if it's an eagle or a sparrow, it doesn't matter. Their wing structure is all going to be exactly the same. And just do a couple of drawings that you see. And if that looks like a little too much for the idea of drawing with the ponies, start to simplify it, start to cartoon it a little bit. But yeah, look at pictures of birds and things like that. Their wings are pretty much set up just like our arms. You know, they have the same bone structure. And it just goes from there.
Thank you.
All good.
I think we're good.
Do you have any good websites for sharing your work and getting good feedback?
Feedback can be hard, just because one thing to always remember if you're, because I think for some of us, I don't know about Andy, we might post on like DeviantArt or Tumblr. There's other sites like ArtStation, but on ArtStation you'll start seeing people who are doing concept art. With feedback, it's often good to try and find a group of people who can show that they have the skills, so then you can actually have an understanding of where we're getting critique from.
We are the MLP Drawing School. We do have a subreddit. If you go to
Please come to us.
Reddit.r/MLP Drawing School and submit a post, we will be there for helpful feedback.
I oftentimes read a few forums, concept art forums in particular. They're kind of elitist, but they also know what they're talking about like really well. So there are different places online that aren't quite as like big as like DeviantArt or anything. But you can post your work to, and they'll help you. If you can find a nice community with some advice. We're all artists. We tend to stick together to a degree.
The other thing too to keep in mind is that you're going to get all kinds of different, from useful to not useful. But if you get, one person says, I think you've got a problem here. Okay, keep that in mind. If you get two people to say, this isn't working, and it may just be just coincidence. You get 5 or 6 people going, we got a problem here.
Eyes do not work that way, then you might need to.
Yes, you might want, but that's what you really take, okay, I need to really look into this.
Okay.
Taking criticism.
Thank you.
Taking criticism is sometimes pretty hard. Like, I think basically like 50% of my improvement came from this guy telling me that I'm bad.
Yeah. My wife is constantly like, because she studied for quantitative animation in college, and she just converted it here. I was like, don't hit me. Okay, fix that.
I try to keep an open mind about any criticism that you do get, but do know the difference between good and bad criticism. There is a difference.
If the guy comes up to you, if you're showing your work to somebody and they say, the angle on this face is not quite working, doesn't quite look right, they're giving you criticism. If somebody goes, this guy looks stupid, I don't like this drawing, that's not criticism. That's being a jerk.
Look for the people who try to help.
Somebody who's trying to help or trying to make a point as to why they disagree with what you've done.
It's a constructive
That's a
criticism.
constructive criticism.
So, all right, next question.
Hello guys, I'm Ben. I'm just getting back into drawing. I was wondering,
you guys ever actually like stolen from Andy to influence your own work?
I'm not getting any checks, so I don't know.
Well, I really enjoy the way Andy does shadows, cast shadows, and the princess's hair, and I have stolen quite a bit of the way he does that to influence my own work. However,
Well, I will tell you who I stole it from.
Ooh.
So,
I'll
like we
stay away
said,
from that.
all influenced.
What a twisted review.
There is Grandpa Andy is going to tell you about the days of comic books in the 1970s when a majority of the artists were from Argentina. And one of the artists was named Esteban Morato. And that's where I get the technique of doing Celestia's hair.
How do you spell Morato?
M-O-R-O-T-O, I think. Esteban Morato. And that was what influenced me with the way that I do Celestia's hair.
All right, I will steal that.
Control S, Control S, Control S.
Why steal from Andy when you can steal from a source?
And as silly as it sounds, that's actually a good point right there. Is why steal from somebody when you can go to the source? Don't just look at the way we might draw. Look at the things that we're looking at to draw, and then look at the things that they looked at.
Which is why people always go back to the old masters, because everybody looks back to looking back to this one guy. And they realized that people used a lot of dark shadows after Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel painting because candles were putting soot on the ceiling, making dark shadows.
Yeah. And it all goes back to Grog in the cave.
Trying to buffalo
to make
the original movie.
And this is why we're actually taking live drawing classes. Drawing live is really important because even if you take a photograph, there'll be little subtle things that's going to happen because the camera lens is going to change the perspective. And then if I do a drawing of that picture, I'm going to look at the photograph and I'm going to put my little mutations, my little permutations.
And it's like each generation, there's an iteration that changes things.
Yeah, so getting back to the original source is great.
All right, next question.
As someone who's become burnt out from drawing recently, what's your recommendations on how to get back into it?
Draw. And
There-
I'm serious.
Try something different.
The 15 minutes of anything, no.
No, you come here.
Yeah, come here.
Come.
Yeah, come.
I'm making an example of you. I don't care what you draw, but you're drawing.
And you're not leaving.
Here's another thing. If you're really getting stuck, I'm not drawing the way I used to, or I'm getting frustrated or whatever, make a deadline.
Yeah.
Say to your roommate, whoever, tell me something to draw. I want you to draw my
Get
cat.
somebody to pay you 50 cents to draw something by a day.
Yeah, I want you to draw my cat, and say, okay, your cat drawing will be done by Tuesday.
It
If
is
it's not done by Tuesday, you owe him $5.
It is more important to
Make
me.
a deadline.
It is more important to me to finish projects than to do one really good piece.
It's more important to do 40 terrible projects than to strain and not do one.
I will not take a commission from someone who doesn't give me a deadline. If they don't have a deadline, I will invent a deadline for them because otherwise, your commission with no deadline goes to the bottom of the pile and everything's stacked on top, and I'll forget about it. But if it's there on the bottom, I say, I have this done by next week. I have to have something done. That makes things happen.
One last thing on this. Another thing I do is there's a wonderful book called Art and Fear that I can go through, and it relates all the psychological things of art and all this crazy things that happens in your brain. You're like, oh, yeah, I do that. That's kind of dumb. I'm not going to do that anymore.
I have one too. Maybe this is a little bit millennial of me, but I just listen to really chill music. And that always gets me in the art vibe. Like, you start feeling like after you've been drawing for a while, you always get in that groove, And music always helps you do that. So whatever your favorite kind of song is, I would recommend listening to some music while you're drawing.
Why don't we get to the next question?
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
You were just saying you listen to music to help you draw. I was
Yeah.
wondering, I didn't listen to music a lot, but
My man.
something I was concerned of is like mileage, just drawing a bunch versus studying, like an art school, where you're just focusing on.
I'm a hobbyist, so I'm biased. I would say do what you want to do. If you're having fun, then you're having fun. If you want to improve, you study.
Yeah.
That's how you get better faster.
And like I said earlier, incorporate fun this stuff.
Yeah, make sure you're having fun or you're gonna burn out fast, you know.
One advantage about actually studying is that you'll have a professionally usually trained instructor who will try to help you through and, you know, shorten the path sometimes. Also, they will force you to have to do things that you don't want to do, and they'll force you to confront your fears. And by confronting your fears, you learn how to grow and expand as an artist.
And you'll get deadlines.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll do the next question.
Yes.
Hi, I'd really like advice on how to do eye shines.
The what shines? Eye shines.
Okay, like specifically for ponies.
Yes.
All right, here's your rules. Grown ponies have 2 eye shines. Fillies have 3. I'm serious. Look at Apple Bloom. She has 3 circles within her eyes. Twilight has 2. It's kind of the standard. Occasionally you'll see on the show they'll only have 1, and it's usually for the sake of space. When their eyes move up and down. And generally, that's the rule.
Eye shine style, but like if you want like realistic eye shines, it's gonna be wherever your light source is. That's just a reflection.
And that's
It's
actually,
reflecting on the spheres.
even in doing the ponies, you should really remember your light source.
Yeah.
It's just a good good thing to remember on anything you're drawing, is to remember a light source. But yeah, that's, and if you can have it overlap from the pupil to the iris a little bit, that makes it look a little bit better contrast, so that's one for sure.
We'll go to the next question, just so we can get through people.
Yeah, we could ramble on these things for an hour, and we only have one.
When do you feel like you're ready to make a commission?
Never.
Whenever somebody's whenever somebody's willing to pay you.
Yeah, it's all about, I mean, if you're serious about taking commissions, then it's about you making money. You have to remember, if you're doing it as a job, fun is great. You can't eat fun. You have to be paid.
You can't pay my rent with fun.
And let me tell you something else that I hear a lot. And I've heard, I will continue to hear all my life. I will continue to be mad at it every time I hear it. Well, I need you to do this. What's it going to pay? Well, I'm not going to pay you, but it's great exposure. I hear it. I hear it to this day. I've been working
How
in the
often
comic
do you
industry
actually
since
do the job?
1990, and I have people come up to me. Oh, it'll be great exposure. That doesn't do jack for me. It gets you what you want, and I get nothing. So don't do that.
What do you do when somebody says something like that?
I turn them down.
Next
How
question.
violently would you say you turn them down?
It depends on how serious they are, but I usually just tell people, I'm honest with them. It's like, that doesn't pay my bills.
Especially family members who want free paintings from you.
Yeah.
We want you to spend 300 hours to do this and then not get paid.
Yeah, when mom says to you, how come you never draw for me? You never pay me. So,
During my free draws, I get a bad tendency to go down the rabbit hole, just add here, add here, add here. It's like, I want to draw a house, why I have an army of ducks. What's a good advice you give to stop yourself?
Thumbnailing.
Thumbnail, make a list of exactly what you're going to draw. You're
On the paper.
On the paper. So if you're just going to draw a house, and just write down, I just want one house. And if you're adding anything else, you're just wasting time, because all your goal is just to make that house.
And also, too, what do you want to be the emphasis in the picture? If this would be the house. The house has got to be there. If it's Applejack out in front of Sweet Apple Acres, well, Applejack is there, then maybe just show a little bit of Sweet Apple Acres. Maybe not even completely finish it. But know what the focus is in the picture.
My daughter is a 12-year-old budding artist. Recently got I gave her a laptop with a Pro Pad.
That's good.
oh, the iPro?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it comes with no good software. So she's a manga style artist. So I'm trying to find something for a budget line for parents.
Okay.
$30 range software. What do you recommend?
Procreate is very cheap, and it was made with iPro in mind. I'm telling you this, I'm not a digital artist. I had a bias for it for a long time, but it's really just another medium. I just got an iPro. Procreate is very simple. There's also a program called Manga Studio.
Yes.
Which is primarily directed towards comic arts.
And Manga Studio does go on sale from time to time.
Also, I'm using a new one called, this one's called Paint Storm Studio, which is actually about $10. It's a nice program. It works very well.
Did you get the Apple Pencil with the Acro?
Get the
Okay,
pencil.
go get an Apple Pencil. Get an Apple Pencil. They're not cheap. They're about $100. However, that's exactly what they're made to do. It was for drawing.
Yeah, and you'll be much happier.
Yeah, it's not just a stylus. It is made for drawing. So get that.
Hi. What are your big differences in drawing, like male and female on the ponies, their faces, or what I'm having trouble with the mare and the stallion?
For me, it's all square jaw.
Yeah, it'll be more softer rounded features for a female versus more angular for a stallion, length of muzzle.
The stallions tend to be a little bit more difficult to draw because of their head shape. It's easier to turn Twilight's face than it is to turn Big Mac's face. And usually when you see him on the show, he's usually face front or, profile, because they also realize that's harder to do. But sometimes if you turn their face down a little bit, it's easier to make it a bit more three-quarter or turn it. Basically, it's just a matter of playing around. The stallions, there's also like two main stallion face shapes. Big Mac's is more of a blunt wedge. Whereas if you look at Shining Armor, he has a little bit more slope in his face. I think the slope ones are a little easier to draw. He has some pretty.
The other one that was spending a long time was Princess Celestia. For like the first couple of seasons, they really tried to avoid doing three-quarter views of her.
Yeah.
Always saw her from a side view
Or front.
How do you draw mouth and nose?
Well, it depends on which character you're drawing. If we're talking about ponies,
Are we talking about ponies?
manpower, that's just a second.
You gotta switch chairs.
Of course. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Another thing that makes it helpful for drawing mouths and noses is look at yourself in the mirror.
Yes.
I've got a mirror in my studio, and my wife will come down with.
Yeah. When you're doing expressions, be sure to have a mirror around. But like with the ponies, I mean, you got a basic head shape, and their muzzles. Gosh, I'm so used to it. I drove. This is weird. Their muzzles are kind of a little triangle shape. Trying to see it's kind of a little triangle shape, and their mouth is just a curve up, a curve down. But start with your basic shape of a circle for their head, and block out where their muzzle is going to be. This is weird.
Everyone's tablet feels funny.
Yeah.
It's like going to a friend's house and trying out their shower. You never understand how it works the first time.
That's true. I'm gonna go back to this. But start with your basic shape of a circle for the head and kind of a little triangle for their muzzle. And then it's just a matter of what expressions you want to do. I mean, if it's just a smile and it's just a simple curved line. Wow. I apologize. I'm not used to this. Yeah. But if you want to do if you want to do kind of an angry mouth. Where's my coffee? But look at yourself in the mirror. Get a little mirror and make a silly face.
Or actually, these things can be very handy. You just take a whole bunch of photographs of yourself.
Yeah, take photograph. I find a lot of the time if I'm doing an extreme expression, which is kind of what I'm going for, I sit there and I'm making the expression while I'm drawing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very common for.
When I'm drawing Luna angry, I'm like, I do the same thing.
Yeah.
So if you draw too much angry art, you get angry. And you're like, why am I angry?
Yeah. There are actually some great photos of Disney animators that are
yeah.
trying to draw, and they're all just like contorting.
But nowadays, almost everybody's phones and you take a photo, make the face.
Yes. Use your take the photo.
Then you don't have to, you can relax. But you'll still end up making the face.
Yeah, sometimes you are just angry at the piece.
But as far as like the pony girls, it's just a little sympathetic, you know, just their little nostril. The princesses, their muzzle is more pronounced, so you typically see both of their nostrils in this Frankenstein formula.
My apologies.
No, I'm going to give this back to you.
I may have doodled on your doodle.
Hi. My question is, what kind of studies, if any, did you have to do to get that nice layer effect on your wings with the feathers?
Literally thousands of wings. Yes. The studies weren't just about wings. There were a lot of studies I did on shadows that really helped inform me on, if I put darks in this area, it really draws attention to the neck. Maybe I should do that on a wing and see what happens. And so, just like Andy Bryce was saying, you don't want to be able to draw just one thing. If I wanted to get good at wings, I also had to get good at shadows to be able to put them on wings, to get good at colors, to be able to have wings, get good at composition so that it can look nice, and get good at anatomy so that everything fits. And so art is big. And if you want to get really good at one thing, you have to get real good at everything. And part of that is learning how to learn and the discipline it takes to just keep drawing every day. So if you want to learn wings, draw lots of things. It's wonderful. It's great.
And realizing
And there are a lot of things you're not going to like studying, but find a way to play with feathers. Have fun.
And remember, feathers bend a lot.
Yes. Yeah. And they have different shapes. There are square feathers, there are rounded feathers, there are pointy feathers. There are,
There are
anatomy books on this.
There are references you can just find collections of bird wings going through different motions.
Yes, and different birds have different kinds of wings. Smaller birds have different ways of playing on their feathers than larger birds.
So we have about 9 minutes left. So the guy in the plaid shirt, you are our end, and we're going to try and get to you. So, yes.
I've been drawing Ponies since like 5th grade, and I'm here just to see what you guys are going to do. And the one thing that I cannot draw is a 3/4 really good like muzzle, you know, like not the cartoon style, but like a realistic muzzle for horses.
Reference. Pick up like a horse magazine.
Briar,
Seriously, go to Barnes and Noble or whatever bookstore is currently surviving this week. And
go get a Briar's horse. My wife collects Briar's horses. They're wonderful because you can take them.
yeah, like a toy horse. You know,
You want to got good modeling to it though, so you can also pick up some bad habits.
But yeah, just draw from pictures, draw from life, draw it all. And again, if you're having trouble, try tracing the image. Here's another trick. If you're doing a drawing and something doesn't quite look right to you, turn the drawing upside down.
Or look at it in the mirror.
Look at it in the mirror. And something, whatever you're not seeing will jump out at you. So
Another trick is to get away from that drawing for 5 minutes and then come back to it. And you're like, oh, there it is. Because you get so intensely focused on what you're currently doing that it's context eludes you. And a lot of this is context. Maybe it's not the muzzle specifically, but the way the eyes work with the muzzle that's messing it up or something. There's a lot of interconnectivity with art. Everything works with everything else.
So we'll get to the next question.
I'm not very good at drawing, and I can basically only draw like neutral positions. So, do you guys have any like advice on like posing or like how they should be when they're like posed in certain ways or like shadows?
okay, are you posing people? Are you posing ponies? What are you posing? Okay, if you're posing ponies, there's not a lot of extreme reference to look at in the show, but I would recommend what is it? The autumn leaf race, I forget the episode, just.
Fall with their friends.
First season, yes. Okay, because then you see everybody running. And look at some screen grabs from there.
Yes, steal from your references.
One of the two best ways that I've found up to come up with more dynamic poses is action line and getting really, really loose about your sketching.
Yeah, this is a big mess. It's supposed to be. Things can be awful. It's great.
If you're really loose about it, you're gonna put things in places you wouldn't normally. You're gonna break your head's little structure. You know, you're gonna try things you wouldn't have otherwise tried. And and that's
Right.
what's gonna give you that.
Here's something I want you to try. Here's some more homework for you. All right, get a sketch pad and a timer. You have 2 minutes per drawing. Do 10 drawings.
Yes.
Yeah. And when that timer stops, I don't care what you think of that drawing. You're done with it. Move to the next one.
Yeah, these are called gesture sketches.
Then set your timer for 1 minute.
Then set for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And then when you go back to 10 minutes, you're like, I have all this time.
Right. The more you loosen up, the better your art is going to be. Like you said, don't stiffen up, because that's where your poses start to get blocked.
Ooh, hey, while we're still on the subject, what do you guys think about drawing with a pen? Like, so you can learn line confidence?
I had an instructor where we weren't allowed to use a pencil. We had to use a pen.
Yeah.
In fact, we had to use an ink brush, and we had to fill the ink brush, and we had to finish the picture in that one ink look. Really saw about how you had to do things.
Yeah, because that way you're not as afraid of making mistakes, because you're going to make mistakes all the time.
Here's something else. Here's another challenge.
Next question. I gotta get to this.
We'll give more homework afterwards.
We got hard, okay?
It's easy to remember. Sorry.
Well, there was this manga and anime I've been reading and watching called One Piece, and I really love the art style. And I want to use that as my inspiration for my artwork. I'm just worried about something. Is it plagiarism if I use someone else's art elements to make it as my own?
Sorry, keep going. Just trying to use, like, if you see the image, you're trying to recreate or create your own version of it.
Yeah, create my own version of it, yeah.
With art, it can be difficult because sometimes it's up to interpretation of how much of it is plagiarism. Because, as you've heard us say, you can steal from your references.
Well, we say references plural because, as I said earlier, you're supposed to take from this artist and that artist. If you take from one source, you're only taking from the one source, and it does kind of fall into that genuine theft. So, if you enjoy One Piece, that's great. Take from it, that's great. Study real people too.
Yeah.
Bring something else into it so you can have your own.
References should be a guide, not something that you just explicitly draw, unless you're studying. You have to explicitly draw. But then again, you can't hold that up and be like, this is all my effort, because it's not all your effort. You're using something that somebody else made, you know?
If you're only drawing like the way somebody else draws, we don't need you. You've already got the original person.
Yeah.
So make something of it your own.
If you go to Disney and try to get a job as an animator, the first thing they're going to want to see is, let's see your life drawing. It's more life drawing. We don't want to see you drawing Mickey Mouse and Daffy and Donald and everything. We want to see you drawing people. Draw some more people and some more people. We can teach you the style you want.
We've been just given 2 minutes, and we probably have about a minute and a half now. So we got 2 more guys. Let's go.
Yeah.
Quick questions.
Let's do this.
He'll hold the mic. You talk.
Yep. So I've got a comment that I just like kind of update as I learn new things every time I draw. So my character's not very on model. Is there a point
It depends on how much you care about consistency. If you want to keep studying and you want to get up to some level, then keep going. It doesn't matter. If you want to just be able to do X, study the crap out of X.
Last question. Speak loudly because we've lost the mic. Sorry,
so the question is, if you draw something and it goes behind something, how would you know when it's exposed again? The answer is you draw it through the thing.
You do that
and then you erase. And you do that in your sketch. You draw lightly. To draw lightly, you hold it back up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Big hand to our guest speaker and guests.
And thank you, Andy Price, for coming. Oh yes, we have our drawer.
How'd you do? By 7 o'clock.